This is Sergio Rivera, and you are listening to Inclusive Education IRL, which is internet shorthand for in real life. The episode you are currently listening to is going to be about who should and who should not listen to this podcast. So I want to start off by mentioning the people that should not listen to this podcast. These are people that are focused on control over their classrooms as their main objective. These are people that are concerned with the standards and overall fairness over everything in their classrooms. People that do not believe in Black Lives Matter, just categorically, that have something contrary to say about that. People that do not believe in bilingual education's merits, and probably trilingual. If you're not down with bilingual, then you're probably not down with trilingual. So we're just gonna, if you're not down with it, then just stop now. Stop at this moment. If you're not into trying to increase or build vision within your students in their role to play in society and after they're out of the school system, then this is not your podcast, my friend. If you are a parent or educator that is not concerned with the role your child or student is going to play in the world, then this is not the podcast for you. If you do not believe in special education and accommodating students' work or just being for them to be happy and included in a community, then this is not the podcast for you. And if you are only concerned with getting good grades, then this is not the podcast for you, my friend. The people that should listen to this podcast are different educators, either general education or special education, or students that are looking to know about the educational field. I have experience working with 5th through 12th graders for a few years now, and I'm going to continue in this field, so I'm going to continue updating this podcast with what I learn. I want parents to also get a bigger perspective of the system that their students are in, because many times there's a stigma around special education by our communities, right? So like parents, different educators, the news, all different things tell us different things about special education, and it's actually really amazing, and it's leading kind of the charge for like inclusion for people that are different. So that relates to, your abilities, your cognitive abilities, your physical abilities, your emotional abilities, the way that you identify as a person as well. So what we're trying to do is really build up students to be able to speak their mind in unprecedented times. So I want people that listen to this podcast to understand that students, we're just have the honor of working with them and trying to build them up and give them tools for them to continue our work in doing things that we can't even imagine. So I have a lot of hope in the students that I work with. I know statistically they're not projected to make a lot of money or to live on their own. But honestly, not a lot of people have those hopes unless they're born into wealth at this point. So I really am hoping that my students in the past and in the future have a bright tomorrow. And I think one of the skills that I can teach them is by working with others and respecting others and being able to voice their opinions when it matters. So that's kind of like my teaching philosophy, and I want to continue kind of sharing that with people and people that want to know more about um, the nitty gritty of special education, like eligibilities, service minutes, like how to work with parents, what can parents do at home to support their student, how can we help our student get ahead, different ideas of that nature. And I want people that listen to this podcast will want to know what the day-to-day of a special education teacher is like and where it's going in the future. So I want to share my experiences so far in allowing somebody the invaluable advice that I would have given myself when I first started in the education field, because I didn't have a lot of mentors, and I definitely did not hear someone that talked like me or looked like me in this space. I found others in the field that filled both those requirements now as like an older teacher, but going into it and studying towards that, I didn't have that role model. I didn't know where to look. Everywhere I looked was kind of like white female that was very excited about organization. And to me, if everyone fits the same mold, it's going to be difficult to kind of grow the profession of teaching, because I see it as something that's very sacred in that you're nurturing young people into becoming the people that they are going to be when they're older, whether that's in the school system or as their parents. So I take what I do very seriously, and I've been influenced by a lot of different writings, the Baha'i writings, Paolo Freire, with his like concept of having the student take responsibility for their own learning and kind of taking away the top down of the teacher being the holder of all the knowledge and kind of just creating a space for everyone to learn from each other, but also guiding the class. Teaching to Transgress by Bell Hooks is a really big influence as well, where we view teaching as sacred and the purpose of education to kind of liberate the minds to create a society that is different than what we have now. So I would say if you're a fan of either of those writers, then you are definitely in the right place. Looking forward to the next episode, I want to research and compile some notes about the history of special education and why there's a stigma behind it in our country, even though our country is kind of, I wouldn't say a leader, but we have at least the concept of helping students with disabilities here in this country, which is better than like my context of like Latin America, where that doesn't really exist. So I want to compile some notes and put an episode together and reference it for myself in the future. This is the end of this episode of Inclusive Education IRL.